Hello and welcome to Girl About Town. I'm Amila Skepe. Today's special guest is Tammy, who is better known as Sunshine Simplicities. That is an incredible athlete, an adventurer, and an explorer at heart. Tammy, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Hi, Amila. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm a little bit nervous, as you know, but yeah, great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us here today. And let's talk about Sunshine Simplicities, right? What inspired this wholesome documentation of your adventures?
Right. Amila, I think it's always been there, this love for travel and history. And I think it goes back to when I was a kid. My late granny and grandpa, they used to love road trips and they loved history and the mountains, etc. And we used to do little daily road trips with them as well. And I remember like those flasks of coffee and anything in that tin foil, and it goes right back to those days. And then my dad, he had a love for history. So a lot of our Sundays were spent exploring the cemeteries in Port Elizabeth and trying to see who could find the oldest grave and reading the engravings. So there was a combination of the nature and my granny's love for the country and the beauty, and then my dad's history. And I think that's where the seed was planted.
Yes.
And then a few years ago, I found myself in a job which took me all across South Africa, basically 6 of the 9 provinces traveling by road. And I started seeing these little towns in the Free State, etc. And I was like, I'm never going to see these again. I'm going to take photos.
Awesome.
And then from that was, putstalls and B&Bs. And the next thing it was churches and cemeteries and bridges. And then I created Sunshine Simplicities, primarily as a digital photo album for myself. And people started following it and commenting. And now, 24 months later, next week, I've got almost 30,000 followers.
Wow.
So it's just grown and grown. And I personally believe it's about the positivity out there.
Yeah.
From the word go, when I started getting responses from people and a couple of newspaper articles, etc., I said, I believe that we are surrounded by negativity every day, social media, the hype of negative news. And it's okay for us to free up some headspace for positivity.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we're ignoring the bad that is going on around us, but it's okay to celebrate the beauty that is still out there in our country.
True.
And that's what I do. I just share my adventures.
Finding the joy in the simplest of things.
Yeah. And if you give me any flack on my page, I block you.
So your athletic nature is truly inspiring. What fuels your passion for marathons, and what's the main goal behind participating in them?
I'm just a sucker for punishment and I can't say no to a challenge. But seriously, it's a sense of accomplishment. And if I really have to look at it, the people.
Yeah.
Being on the road is the most incredible experience, and it just levels it for everybody. When you're out there, it doesn't matter culture, status, age, race. When you're about to bail at like a 50-kilometer mark, it's that camaraderie. People, come on, you can do it, and just pulling you through. So, I know I'm never going to podium, okay? But it's personal goals and challenges, and it's just incredible the people that you run with.
And it's so great how, strangers root for you in that instance. You're like, oh, man.
Absolutely.
And let's talk about your experience in finishing last.
Do we have to?
Yes. in Tebega's 50 kilometers ultra marathon. How did you find that milestone rather positive instead of, the typical discouragement that comes with being lost?
Well, I've never finished last. I've come close to last in the past. But the Bay Ultra, what it was called back then, I probably did it about 7 years ago the last time, and I bailed on it.
Aww.
So we don't have a good relationship. And my boyfriend didn't realize that I'd done all my Two Oceans marathons in the past. And I'd never gone back to running my permanent number, that was like 6 years ago. So he was like, come on, you can get back into running, you can do it. I was like, okay, let me take on the Bay Ultra. Anyway, I was like, I'll just see how far I can go. And I got to the marathon mark and I thought they're going to pull me off. And then the lady says, run. So I carry on running. Well, not really running. And at about Pine Lodge on the Marine Drive, I just heard this popping sound and I turned around And the ambulance was literally crawling behind me. And as it was hitting those water sachets on the ground, they were popping. So the whole time you got this guy like stalking you. I mean, I'm walking. Can you imagine how slow he's going? And then at the beacon, I spotted a gentleman and he was like struggling and he stopped at the side of the road. And I thought, maybe I can catch up with him and I won't be lost, And then I was like, come on, dude, we can do this. Yes. And at about probably about 100 meters, no, further, he looks at me and he goes, sprint. And I'm like, no, we're not sprinting. And then we go a little bit further and he goes, now. And I'm like, no, dude, we're not sprinting. And then the traffic officers put on their sirens and the ambulances and people started screaming for us.
Oh.
And as we turned the last probably 30 meters at Pollock Beach, I looked at him and I said, now. So I might even come last again just to experience this. It was incredible. I definitely didn't feel like I lost.
Yes.
It was, again, it's a personal accomplishment. And I flipped and took that Bay Ultron and I finished it.
Listen, it was also getting back at it.
Exactly.
You needed to prove that point.
Yeah, so it was a fantastic experience.
Awesome.
It really was, yeah.
So Tammy, how do your adventures and marathons influence how you conduct your everyday life?
Amelia, I think in both of them, I've met the most incredible people.
Yeah.
It's about, people have taught me about resilience, determination.
Yeah.
Both from our travels and looking into our history, which I believe our history is very complex.
Yes.
And I don't believe many of us totally grasps or comprehend its complexities.
Yes.
So I don't profess to be a historian or anything like that.
Yeah.
But going out there, I've met the most wonderful people in the smallest of little villages or people who've got little B&Bs that have worked so hard to. And both the exploring and the running, it just gives me so much joy. And from that joy, I believe it snowballs.
Yeah.
And the more it's infectious, the more that we surround ourselves with positive people and positive things, so it manifests in our everyday lives. And honestly, my travels, I try and focus on truly the simple things and places.
Yeah.
Things are costly in the country. So, it's a matter of, can you club together with your friends, put in some fuel and go and explore the places I go to. They don't cost money, most of them. It's just a matter of getting out of your comfort zone, going out there and meeting new people. And it's the same in running. You're meeting new people you don't even know their names half the time. I mean, that poor gentleman who crossed the finish line with me in the Bay Ultra, I still don't know who he is. But yes, both of them just give me so much joy.
Awesome. So speaking of that, you're quite the traveler. Tell us, what has been your favorite place to explore around South Africa and what did you take from that experience?
You can see I'm smiling because that's so easy. Okay, my favorite is the Eastern Cape. I absolutely love the Eastern Cape. It is an untapped into market. There are so many hidden gems.
Yes.
And by far my most favorite was the Zeli Convent, just outside King Williamstown. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not sure how to say it, the new name. But it's about 9 kilometers outside King Williamstown in the hills. It's surrounded by a lot of villages. And this was an orphanage dating back to the late 1800s.
Wow.
Today, it closed in 1980 and it's in a sad state of disrepair, etc.
Yes.
But what I do with my page is I still see the beauty in it. And this is quite possibly the most beautiful building I've ever seen. And I've traveled overseas, etc. It is just beautiful. And when I did that post, what I started getting was comments from people who grew up in the orphanage in the 50s, 1950s, old people now. And the next one commented and said, I remember you. And somebody posted black and white photos when they were little like tiny kiddies in the orphanage. And that was just so incredible. And then I'll give you 3 of them. My second one is St. Matthew's Church up in Hook. I don't know if you're familiar with the area.
Yes.
Again,
I've heard about it, yes.
Out in villages in the mountains, out in the Matola area. The most beautiful, beautiful church. And still in use today. Built in the 1800s. Struggling community, really, but pride in their town. And when I was there, I also took photos of a whole lot of other churches in Hook. And a year later, somebody sent me a message, a gentleman, and it was from the Gilead Church. The photo I taken a year ago, it was falling apart, holes in the roof. They saw those photos, came together as community and renovated this church.
Wow.
And it was so wonderful to see.
That's massive.
And then the third one, my scariest adventure was into Sandile's cave.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's also just outside King Williamstown into the Amatola Mountains. You start off at Maidenhead Dam, and it's quite a hike up the mountain.
Yeah.
And you get up there, and it's not a cave; it's a hole covered by giant boulders. And a friend of mine took me up there and said, "You'll love this. This is where the Causa chief hid for something like 7-8 days.
Yeah.
Apparently, with a broken leg in this, it's just like meters and meters below ground. And at one point, I was left down there alone because the dogs were barking up above ground, and I was down there in the pitch dark. And as I turned to my side, and I couldn't move because you're on like a little ledge on boulders, there were these daddy long legs, the biggest daddy long legs you've ever seen, and I couldn't touch them, and they had to just crawl on my face and my hair, and I cried. I
was about to ask, when she's scared?
No, but to actually experience being in that place.
Yes.
Was, and again, these are things that we can all, and places we can explore, you know. So those are my 3 favorites.
Oh, right. Listen, Tammy, thank you so much for joining us on Girl About Town today. It really has been a pleasure to have you in studio. And listen, all these adventures, what I've taken from them is that they don't really cost anything much. Hey?
No, as I say, it is your fuel. And I mean, I've camped in a tent on my own in the middle of nowhere, and, you know, I've done backpackers to experience it all. There are really beautiful places out there. I just want to say, a lot of people do comment sometimes to me.
Yes.
Obviously, be on guard, be careful, you know, travel in numbers if you can. Don't do stupid things. But at the same time, don't let it hold you back from exploring our beautiful country.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, my darling. That was Tammy from the incredible blog that is titled Sunshine Simplicities, and it literally finds the joy in the simplest of things.